Volume 3 of my newspaper side/spinoff series. We're going to continue with the church in Austin. I was talking about the end of Volume 2. This is the side. And I remember here, in that stairway, there was an interesting bulb. See if I can find one, because it had like almost looked like a mercury vapor bulb, because it had a little squared off section. Well, this is the closest I could find. Even if I remember right, it had more of a round globe rather than like this, but it still had that little bulge at the end. Evidently, these are called blown tube bulbs. Like that. Like I said, I thought it had more of a globe like that, but with that little bulge. One thing I do remember, though, is when I saw that, it was near Christmas time, and Mom had choir practice in the choir room downstairs there. And I think that was before the remodel. Might have been after. But it was downstairs, and one of their songs was Sing Me Now of Christmas, and had an interesting melody to me. Here. So yeah, I thought that sounded interesting, especially that part. But anyway, and then the library was just down here. Our old public library was down here where this parking lot is. It had a pyrotronic system with the MS-151 pulse and DI-3 detectors. And I think it was like 7002 horn strobes. Another thing I remember too was we'd go to the library sometimes, and Mom would be at church here for Bible study. And the more vivid one I remember was when they were studying Revelations. Now we can go to the front though. Yeah, I had basically 3 levels. One up here, and a smaller main level there, which sort of more was a lobby. And then a basement, which I just mentioned, had like a second small chapel and dining area, choir rooms, Sunday school classrooms, restrooms, kitchen down there. And they also had speakers that are hooked up to the sanctuary. Because I remember once we were getting ready for something that was after the service, some event, and we were down there. And I think in one room there was a big drain, because there was water in it. Kind of had the look of little floor vents. And as far as alarms, it was just a fire horn down in the basement. Not even sure if it was hooked up. So yeah, that's a cool place. And there was an elevator too, or probably still is. Of course, back then, I didn't even have any type of video recording equipment. Mom had a camcorder, but yeah. So obviously I don't have any footage. That's not anymore. That station. Or maybe it is, and it just left our market. Yeah, let's see. We could check. Yeah, that's what I thought. So just turn to KSMQ, because I remember that being channel 15. Anyway, that sounds familiar. You probably heard of it. Obviously, as I mentioned in my Honeywell video, I had orthodontics up in the cities. And probably that's the cheapest insurance we could find. Something. Looking through the both bulbs here, not seeing anything. And 81. I think that's when they would have still had the revolving beacons like you're seeing. Or maybe just transitioning to the Dietz strobes. I think it was when they were still using the beacons. I think they're still around. I've seen it before. Let's see. You know, because obviously that's probably the huge satellites, and obviously those really don't exist anymore as far as residential TVs. Obviously nowadays it'd be Dish and Direct TV. Another one. You know, my aunt and uncle on my mom's side, they had a big satellite dish, but they were out in the country, so. Radisson. I think that used to be over here too. Let's see what this is. It's somewhere in here. It says 1620. Yeah, like I said, that's still around. And, and originally, the women's section was upstairs on the street level, but now it's separated into a couple different stores in the subway level. So yeah, this is where the women's was, up on this level. And then so you got the bins down here. This is how you'd get from upstairs to down here. And here's this one. And the women's are over here showing you. And you've seen them before. So here's one of the stores for ladies. Can't remember what this was before. And nothing's over here. And we have another one over here too. Used to be Geiger. Well, I do remember when it was on street level because one time Mom and I came up here to return something for our neighbor. Yeah, this would have been the street level. What it would have looked like. Oh, there's that place. All right, now we can. And by 2015, yeah, they had moved. And they had expanded all their stores down the subway like I showed you. Continuing on. Stevenson and Snow. I've heard of it. I wonder if they're still around. Where would this have been? You'd see someone West Bank building. Yep, so I think it would have been in the upper level. Like that Suite 601. Okay, let's see. This floor. So it would have been one of these. It doesn't really tell you which suite it is, just 600s. You know, kind of does these. It probably would have been, one of these. One of those. So I was going to say, I haven't heard of it. I've heard of them, but never seen it here. Now, yeah, I wonder if they're still around. Was, yeah. Here's this again. Let's see. It would have been here. Art gallery. And then they moved down there. I said, O&B Shoes. Downtown. No, of a couple places they were. Ironically, we can stay in the same area. Because they were over here. We can take it back to 2012. There it is. Oh, I like that First Avenue food court sign. Too bad that's not there anymore. Peace Plaza doesn't look the same as it used to. Nowhere near as cool, sadly. But anyway, then it was over here. Uh-oh. Let's see, this is Hanny's. And now you're going to fast forward to the O&B shoes. Welcome back. Now you might have noticed too, this place. So she was there, and then she was here. So that's two locations I know of. Let's see. Yeah, 2017, and they had that stairway. You can kind of see it there. You can get up to the main level there. Anyway, yeah. And then 2018, 2022, that's where this was. Jeez, that lost a lot of quality. Anyway, by then she would have been over here, down there. You might have remembered that from one of my thrifting videos when I showed you that Ion speaker. But now she's over here. So she's here now. At 4 locations. And this was a jewelry store for like a couple of months. Let's see if we can see it. Yep. Oh, look at that. Summit truck. Yeah. It was that for a couple of months, then it went away. So thankfully it was there. Documented, if you will. We're in Austin here. Let's see. This is that. Yep. Not sure if he was then, but for a while he was the fire chief. For example, you might have seen that article. Well, you have, duh. But that one mentions him. Then you saw him in one of my fire alarm videos. This one.
Smell anything? Not yet. There's a reset panel right in that office right there.
Anyway, let's see. Cedars, yep, they're still around. I believe. Mom's friend lived there after she moved out of her house, which had the H01 301. And then her son was actually a firefighter, is or was. It was Mom's friend from church. Yeah, let's see. I think it's right here. Yep, there it is. Cedars of Austin. And if I remember right, they had multi-alerts. Or maybe it was... I think it was multi-alerts, and then some areas had vibratones. It's been quite a while. What's that? I remember that. I also remember the everything $1.29 store there in the mall. Yes, Godfathers, they're still around too. And back when we went there, on the buffet, they had some of the best mac and cheese around. It tasted like Kraft. Yeah, there it is. Wilson Tech. I don't think I've ever heard of that. What's that? Mark's Furniture I've heard of. Yep. I'm not sure if they're still around, but I've heard of them. And Bricks, yeah, they've been around for years. They actually have an old manually activated elevator. Not manually activated, but manually controlled. So, you don't have a button for like third, fourth, second. You actually had basically like the crank that you had to activate. And it had the sliding and the mesh doors. That's still around. Let's see where this would have been. I'm not sure where this would have been. This is long before we had Staples. Even though I just had Staples. But not that type of Staples, of course. Oh, there we go. That's what I probably figured it was. Good old J&K. I've been in their store several times. And end. Austin again. Yeah. I think they're still around. If I remember right, we went with Storm Spotter training class there once. And Holiday Inn, yep, that's still around. But right near my apartment building, within walking distance. You saw it during one of the siren videos. I don't remember that one. I think I remember that. For a while, they had a good buffet and Green Mill Pizza, too. That was really good. Couple different churches again. Well, there we go. Just like we saw in the beginning of this volume. And that, yep, Radio Shack. And there's that again. Now, one thing is if you're into arcade games, and especially Mortal Kombat, I remember in the 90s, like 93, 94, when they were about to get theirs, our arcade at the mall, they were about to get their cabinet. I remember the absolute buzz at school, high school, talking about the cabinet that they're about to get. Ankeny's, yep, heard of that. Oak Grill, yeah. Watts Cooking, oh yeah. The one place I miss, 76 Truck Stop, even though it was something other later on. And that was the one I mentioned, had the BRK 79R in the truckers area. I had to go up there once because the bathrooms here were locked off, or not really here, but in the main area of the truck stop. They were locked off for cleaning or something like that. Oh yeah, and then I remember for quite a while, every Saturday they had all-you-can-eat fried chicken. So we took advantage of that plenty of times. And of course, I'm always mentioning fried chicken in these side volumes. Whichever. And that, remember that one. History of Drugs, yep. G&G, yep. They were still around, and I do believe they're still, to this day, using their same song slogan as they did back then.
Also, why are they using our pound symbol instead of the ampersand?
Carney's, yeah. I think they're still around, that one. Use them, that's another area that's close to me, or was close to me, my apartment building. Joseph, yeah. I don't think that was there. Yeah, Alton Ford, told you about that earlier. I think I recognized that. Federal, Firestone. I remember, too, like one of the first years I had school there, we had a teacher named Regenscheid and said, like, Reagan the President and President and Scheid like this. And TCF, yeah. The Alton Builder Supply. Been there a couple times. I got my Allen key wrench set there. Hex wrench. I know there's some missing, but yeah, I got this there. The Shopko. Again, another place that was close to me. Got quite a number of things there. For Post Bulletin 75, so let's see. Food Bonanza, heard about it. Like the Rochester, Minnesota Facebook group. They said that was kind of like a predecessor or spinoff of Kmart. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the one that's down here. I've seen it a couple times. Became Barnes & Noble, now it's kind of a theater again, even though it's more for like get-togethers and special displays, stuff like that. And then they're supposedly doing stuff in the sky with remodeling, but haven't done really anything in quite a while. I have a video waiting for any updates. Little travel viewer, nope. Killer Hotel East. I wonder if that would be the Killer Inn and Suites now. Or that might not have been even downtown here. If that's the furniture place, I think that's still around. What is this? National 201 Ninth Street. That would be right here. So I wonder if that's maybe where the Salvi was. I bet it was. Even though I really never saw any sign of like a freezer section. Or like drains for freezers here. But maybe they tiled over it or something. Needs electric, never heard of it. Henry's, ooh. Again, never heard of it, but I've seen it talked about a lot in the Facebook groups. Moving on, I haven't seen anything lately. We're running out of time. They used to have fire alarm boxes here. Main station. That'd be station 1, I do believe. Let's see. Yeah, that would be this on station 1. Let's see. East Center Street at 2nd Avenue. I might even get to show you that. So it looks like it would have been here, which is now now Civic Center. So it's probably here. And so here we are. East Center Street, Civic Center, which I assume was 2nd Avenue. So would it have been here? One of these? Maybe that? Over here? So I'd have to take a look at the picture again just to see where it could have been. If it even showed the area down here. Maybe that? I don't think it's too far away though. I think it just showed sort of like that. But I could try to see if I can find out. Anyway, there. Anyway, let's continue on with the paper. Even though I think we might be running out of time. There's some churches again, so let's see. Well, that one that we performed in had been there in 78. I think so. And again, there's the one that staffs go to. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. That's where we performed last year. The Deadly Dam. Well, hot deadly damn. Well, hot deadly damn. I think it's about time to end this one. So, thanks for watching.